How to execute indexation events in Nakisa Lease Accounting. Hello, Amina here again. In the last video, we learned how to set up indexation values. Now I need to execute an indexation event. Let's walk through the process. Back in my activation group, I click on the event button to begin. All activation group changes are handled through this single event mechanism, where I must enter an event name and select a modification date. This selection is unrestricted within the lease term, as the advanced accounting engine calculates daily balances. The date determines when the event's financial impact is recognized. Here, I enter November 14th, 2025. Next, I select the modification reason, which defines the event's impact and the changes allowed. I choose indexation. Additional inputs may be required. For an indexation event, I define the scope, whether it applies to lease terms, non-lease terms, or both. I start with lease terms. US GAAP treatment type was already set in our first video. This choice is final and applies to all future indexation events for this activation group. Indexation payment date types determine when index adjustments take effect. Selecting ROU anniversary will use the lease start date of each subsequent year. User-defined lets me specify a date. I select user-defined and enter January 1st, 2026. This means the financial impact is recognized on November 14th, but lease payments only adjust from January 1st. I also want to adjust non-lease terms. Indexation dates can differ between lease and non-lease. Here I select user-defined and enter December 1st, 2025. Once satisfied with my inputs, I click Submit. A draft version of the activation group is created. The definition page records the modification, lease, and non-lease indexation dates for reference. Navigating to the Accounting tab, I return to the Indexation section to update my inputs. For lease payments using CPI Local, I manually adjust the current index level to 110. As this exceeds the maximum allowed change, the system highlights that 108 will be applied. For non-lease payments using CPI Global, the reference date defaults to the modification date. I leave it unchanged as November 14, 2025. The corresponding rate is pulled from the financial organization structure, increasing from 132 to 136. With my inputs updated, I move to the Terms and Conditions tab to see their effect. The base indexation rate remains 95. The reference rate is now 108. Comparing these values, the system will calculate a 13.68% increase. In the non-lease term, the reference increased from 132 to 136, producing a 3.03% increase. I'm happy with these inputs, so I generate the financial schedules. Let's see how these increases impact the payment amounts. At inception, with a base of 95 and a reference of 100, the system applied a 5.26% adjustment, totaling $631.58. Our event is recognized in period 3, aligned with the November 14th modification date, as shown by the document icon. Clicking the icon displays a preview of the financial documents that will be posted, including the asset and liability adjustments. The increase in lease payments occurs from January 1st, 2026, due to our deferred indexation date input. With a base of 95 and a reference of 108, the 13.68% adjustment increases the total index payment to $1,642.11 as of period 5. The non-lease term is also adjusted, with a $28.86 increase, reflecting the 3.03% change between the base and reference rates. And that's it. I'm ready to send this activation group for management approval. You've seen how to execute an indexation event in Nakisa Lease Accounting. From creating the event and updating inputs, to reviewing base versus reference values and seeing their impact in financial schedules. Thanks for watching.